Welcome to Nasdaq Trade Talks. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq. Joining me on Veterans Day 2020 is Karl Snyder, USMC veteran and Managing Director at VETS Indexes, to discuss the 2021 VETS Indexes Employer Awards and how firms can participate. Karl, thank you for your service. Welcome back to Trade Talks.
Thank you, Jill. It's always great to be here. And to all the veterans out there, thank you and happy Veterans Day.
Thank you, Karl. And tell us about VETS Indexes.
Sure. So now we have been picking up some momentum. We've several years strong, so to speak. We incorporated back in 2017. The idea, though, behind this had been a long time coming. There's been myself and a few others within our organization. We are guys that spend time in the financial markets, but myself being a veteran and a few other gentlemen that are part of the team have family members who are veterans, and lots of friends, obviously, veterans as well. And we just started thinking, what can we do within our wheelhouse of expertise to help veterans, and then potentially even develop a model where that can be what we do full-time, kind of transition. So we said, let's not go out of our expertise, so to speak, of the financial industry, but we didn't want to have be an asset manager within the space. We've always felt that hiring veterans was not just a good or patriotic thing. It is, and thank you to all the companies and organizations that do so. We really appreciate it. But there's a lot of empirical data suggested within different industries and institutes that show that veterans can have a significant and positive impact to your bottom line for companies. And that was our basis for starting VETS Indexes, to say, let's look at this. So we started doing data, started working with companies, started working with various groups that do surveys themselves. And as we kept discussing with them, and then as we started back testing data about growth within these companies, as far as stock performs, et cetera, we saw that the human capital that companies are tapping into by hiring veterans and developing best practices for veterans over long periods of time to outperform their peer group. And that was what gave it, the bite, so to speak, so people would buy into it, just not the fact that we think it's a good idea to hire veterans, but actually the performance is there to do so.
Yeah, that's really interesting. It's different than simply checking off the box for a diversity and inclusion strategy. Exactly. So let's dive into this more. What do veterans bring to the table, and how can organizations better support them and their families as they transition from military life to corporate setting and throughout their career?
Sure. And that's a great question. Veterans, what they bring first and foremost, a lot of people think leadership qualities, and that truly is the case. But the ability to act under pressure, the ability to think quickly. The fact is that we also then want to look at some of the hard details. Is you've got, if they're a veteran that's coming out after 1 or 2 deployments, men, women in their young 20s, mid 20s, who have managed and overseen anywhere from tens to hundreds of people, and also millions and perhaps even hundreds of millions worth of U.S. government equipment. So I think a lot of people don't put that together, that what these individuals are overseeing and what they're responsible for, especially on deployments. The fact that, I'll talk a little bit about just the Marine Corps, because that's my expertise as far as where I come from, being deployed on ship, being able to basically take a full fighting force and deploy that within just a few ships and be able to be self-sufficient and self-sustained and have that ability to oversee people and to make decisions. But I'd like to go more beyond that. Is today in technology, veterans are learning so much more than veterans of 10, 15 years ago. Even 5 years is a tremendous amount of different. All of the things that are being done within the military, everything's technology driven. You look at their equipment, you look at what they do, everything's done on computers. For example, when I was in the Marine Corps, I was in artillery. Everything was done using old type of surveying type data. Now everything is technical. So also the top clearances that a lot of veterans bring to the table, men and women in the military, because of this long deployments, not deployment, but the fact of the long deployments that we've been having overseas for almost 20 years now. A lot of veterans are bringing to the table their clearances for security companies, technology companies who want to contract with government, it's a lot easier to have somebody who has those clearances already and is well versed in that area, as opposed to maybe looking at a college graduate who's done very well in their class, but doesn't have that type of experience and also doesn't have those clearances yet. So those are some key things, but and we feel that they bring a tremendous asset to the companies that they perform. And just to answer on your question, though, what are some of the things that are going on right now? What's been going on for a while, the Department of Defense has what's called Skill Bridge. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it's with the different branches of the military. It's like an internship. Veterans, military that is, who are within 6 months of ending their active duty service, they can find companies and see if they can intern for them. And there's a lot of corporations throughout the country who are participating in that. And it's a really great thing because it's a type of try on and see type thing. It's allowing military to get a taste of maybe the industry they want to go into, whether it's technology, whether it's manufacturing, et cetera. And the great thing about companies is they're able to see what veterans bring firsthand. You have somebody who's in the military right now getting ready to transfer. And the great thing is there's not a risk to anybody in this case, because the way it's set up is that companies and organizations are not paying the veteran for this because they're still within their active duty. So they're still being paid through their military service, but they're just now, instead of doing military work, they're now currently doing that internship as a college intern might do over the summer. But it's a really great thing, the Skill Bridge. It's expanding that gap and narrowing that gap of coming out of the military and then going right into the workforce.
Yeah, that's encouraging to hear. In fact, one of my mentees through ACP participated in a similar program and over the summer landed a financial services job at Citigroup in Florida. So these programs really do work, Karl. Let's talk about 2021 VETS Index's Employer Awards. What kinds of organizations can participate and why should they?
Sure. So first question is what kind of organization? So it can be corporations of all sizes and types, publicly traded, privately held, nonprofit organizations, institutions, government agencies. So we want to look at all the different organizations out there that employ veterans and hire veterans and have programs, and then be able to see what they're doing and then look at them compared to their peer group and then rank them accordingly. So it can be anyone within our survey. Why should they do that? There's a lot of surveys out there that we have been involved in the past, and a lot of companies want to make sure that they're not just checking the boxes for veterans, but they're companies who are doing this and are receiving top awards within the field of hiring veterans. They're proud of the work they're doing, and not proud of it because they're saying, look at me. They're like, look at what we're able to accomplish. Look at the veterans that we're able to bring on board. And in turn, look at how our organization is benefiting. So I think that it's really important for companies to want to do this as far as their survey. One, also, too, it makes sense because all your, not all, but a good majority of all your peers are. We have 2 indexes now, and within those indexes, there are very top names, large names, and also smaller names, and you want to make sure that you're keeping up with your peers and also recruiting that great talent pool. So that's why I feel that it's important for companies to want to do that and make sure that they're up to where they need to be for military ready, veteran ready, so to speak.
What kinds of data are you looking for on the survey, and when will the results be announced?
Sure. So there's 5 main categories. I'm just going to look down at my notes to make sure I have them correct the way I do. So it's veteran job, recruiting, and hiring is so 5 main categories. So veteran job and recruiting and hiring. You also have veteran employee support and retention. We're looking at veteran inclusive company culture. Also support for members of the National Guard and Reserve, which is very important to us as well. And we cannot forget about the military spouse and their family. What type of, what are they doing for hiring military spouses? How are they navigating that? How are they making it remote for them? And also, what kind of support are they putting in for their families as a whole? So those are the 5 main categories. And we have over 70 questions within those 5 categories where we're drilling down, where we're asking more quantifiable data as far as what do you spend on your hiring? And if they don't want to say that, what percentage of your budget is for military based on career, based on hiring events? Out of the hiring events that you've had, how many were geared directly towards veterans and things of that nature? It's a little tough this last year. There's a lot of things that are still being done, but you're not going to see as much as far as in-person hiring events, but a lot of people are doing great things as far as virtually. And Jill, the one thing I wanted to just answer on that before I get to your second question, what's very important is when people trust us with their data, we're not disclosing it to other people. It's private and held within us. So companies can feel rest assured that when they give us the data, it's the data that they provide, and we're not disclosing their data. So we don't want to feel companies that we're going to share publicly. We're not a media company. We're not going to release that data. But then also importantly is we're going to have it audited by an outside auditor, so that in addition to being quantifiable, we're making sure that the integrity, that's always important to us, the integrity of our index and the survey is done correctly, to make sure that there's an outside source, a third party that's independent, looking at all the data and saying, here are the results and this is how it's done. So we're trying to be as transparent as we can to give companies the ability to feel comfortable with sharing all those details with us. And to follow up your question, we're looking to launch, or excuse me, to announce the results in early spring. There's not a definitive date, but we're looking early spring to have those results.
All right, Karl, always great to catch up with you. Thanks for joining us on Trade Talks.
Thanks, Jill.
And thanks for joining me. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq.